Welcome back, guys. We're continuing on with these 1v1 Mechabellum replays, and unfortunately, at the beginning of this battle, I don't know what I was doing. I was doing something, and the timer ran out, and so I ended up having a random pick. So I probably would have gone for Rhino, Arclight, Stormcaller, or Crawler, Sledgehammer, Aerial. But I ended up with Steel Balls, Fangs, and Marksman, which is a bit of a mishmash combo. So I decided to. I saw a tournament game where people were using Steel Balls. I very rarely use them, so I'm very inexperienced with Steel Balls. But I saw a tournament game where people were using them as like a tank rather than a damage dealer. And so because of the awkward start, I decided to try and use them in that fashion. Now, the opponent's got Mustangs, Crawlers, and Giant Specialist. Now, this is not a very good start for me. Steel Balls are bad against both of these, Crawlers and Mustangs. Snipers are bad against both of these. And Fangs get... well, they're bad against both of them as well, really. So yeah, basically, his entire comp is a counter to my entire comp. So it's an awkward start. So I'll have to try and think on the fly about how to actually go about rescuing this mission if I can. Call it a mission. Battle. So yeah, I remembered a tournament game that I saw where people were using, I think it was Mustangs behind the Steel Balls, and just using the Steel Balls to tank the damage, and then the Mustangs behind were dealing all the damage. But I don't think they had Fangs and Snipers, so that's definitely not part of the tournament strategy. So I've got a couple of Crawlers, just to, if they bring out a splash damage dealer, just to make it difficult to kill all the Crawlers. But it's looking like they've got enough damage, DPS, to not need splash damage. So these Crawlers were probably a mistake. So yeah, the whole start of this battle is a complete mess. So I decided to go for Sledgehammers, which I was thinking would be a good splash damage to their Crawlers and Mustangs. But on the same turn that I bring in them, they bring in the counter, which is Stormcallers. So things are going from bad to worse. So as you can see, the Fangs can't even deal with a Crawler unit one-on-one, which is pretty shocking. You would have thought a ranged unit of the same level would deal with a melee unit of the same level, but clearly not. So yeah, as you can see, this is just a complete shit show at the moment. But I haven't lost too much health. I can still rescue this. Potentially. So I see heavy hackers, and damn is it a hard thing to pass up on. But there are no enemy units that the hackers are good against, so that would be a stupid thing to do. So this is when I decide to bring in the Mustangs and copy the tournament game that I saw. So I'm going to bring in Mustangs, stick them behind the steel balls, and see if that'll work. I'm bringing in some crawlers to distract the stormcallers. So that is the crawler's only job, is to distract these stormcallers. I accidentally put the crawlers behind here instead of the Mustangs, so I'm going to notice that in a second and switch them back over. Okay, so Operation Great Escape. Let's see if we can get this done. So the crawlers did a great job of distracting the stormcallers. The stormcallers have hit nothing so far. But now they're about to deal some serious pain to my steel balls. But I'm almost in on their stormcallers. I've managed to take out a unit of stormcallers, so that'll make life a bit easier. Hopefully I can take this tower out. Yep, the tower's down. And somehow we've managed to make a comeback. Now it might be short-lived, because he might just instantly bring out a counter to this. Now, the one thing that would screw this up for me, let's just see if I choose anything. So he's gone for barrier. He's giant specialist, so he's obviously putting a barrier on a giant. Now, it makes sense that he goes for Vulcan, as that is the counter to most of my units. I've gone for orbital bombardment to try and deal with these stormcallers. So as I was saying, the one thing that would screw me up is if he killed these crawlers, because these are distracting the stormcallers. So I decided to bring in another unit and put them in front, because I'm fully expecting a rocket here, which would kill the crawlers and the fangs. Now, it turns out he didn't use a rocket, and me putting these crawlers closer, as close as I did to these crawlers is a bad thing, because the stormcaller that misses this crawler is going to wipe out these. So this was a bit of a mistake here, only putting them 3 tiles apart. I should have put them 5 tiles apart, but I was fully expecting them to get rocketed, so I wasn't thinking about the placement, the distance. So I've gone for missile interceptor on the Mustangs. At the moment, all I want the Mustangs to do is protect from stormcallers, and then I'm hoping that the fangs and the sledgehammers and the steel balls will carry everything else. So the orbital bombardment did a fantastic job on this side, basically wiped out the entire right hand side. And as you can see, the missile interceptor's doing a cracking job. Now his stormcallers are basically useless. So it also means that my Mustangs are basically useless, but at least it's nullified the threat that I was facing. So yeah, we're basically nullifying each other, but the Mustangs do manage to get a few shots off in between missile intercepting duty, so that's not too bad. I'm not a massive fan of the missile intercepting mechanic. I think it's too much of a hard counter. Hard counters are not a good thing in strategy games. It's much better if you have soft counters. So I'm bringing in the field recovery just so I can move the crawler unit 2 spaces forward so this one survives. So unfortunately that was a wasted 100 supply and reinforcement point, which is going to be a problem because it means that I'm not going to be able to deploy an extra unit that I would have wanted to deploy. So I'm upgrading the sledgehammers because they are still part of my damage dealing force, while the Mustangs are on missile intercept duty. So I'm bringing in Mustangs and steel balls. Now, if I had the reinforcement point that I didn't have to spend on this, I would have been able to get a steel ball over here as well. Sadly, because of my mistake, that was not an option. So, he's got 2 Vulcans, one with a barrier. He hasn't sold his Stormcallers, so he's obviously just trying to work around the missile intercepting. But the missiles are doing nothing basically at the moment. They're doing absolutely nothing. So the Vulcans are doing a fantastic job dealing with all the small units, but they are struggling to deal with the steel balls. They are doing damage, they've wiped them out on this side, but we've managed to break through over here where we had 2 units of steel balls and one of the units was upgraded. So here at the moment we're just delaying the damage while we're waiting for the rest of our units to show up. Unfortunately the steel balls did not lock onto the Vulcan first, but hopefully they will change targets. No, unfortunately they went for the tower, but that's not such a bad thing because he just about survived long enough to take the tower out. All the rest of the units killed the Vulcan, and we have managed to win that round as well. So things are going okay. It was a great escape. But things can easily turn in one round. It can go from looking good to looking terrible, as we've already shown in this. So we need to decide, do we want to mix up the strategy or carry on doing what we're doing? So I've gone for steel balls over here and I've put life leech on them, energy absorption, so that will hopefully keep them alive a bit longer while they are sucking the life out of the Vulcans. He's gone for strike specialist, but it doesn't look like he's actually putting anything in at the moment, so it's a bit of a weird decision to go for that, especially with the flanks being covered so well. Not really sure what his plan was there. So I've decided to change or add a new element into the strategy. I don't want to just repeat what I'm doing because that would be easy to counter. So I'm bringing in some flying units which are good against the Vulcan. They are long range as well, so they should be able to stay out of the range of the Mustang. And he's gone for Ignite. Oh no, it's not Ignite, sorry, it's Incendiary Bomb. So he's obviously trying to burn the ground out, so all of my units just walk into the fire. Now this works against him because all of his crawlers also walk into the fire. It's one of the reasons why I don't really use this ability much, because it does almost as much damage to your own units if you're using crawlers, that is. So if you're not using crawlers, you're safe to use it, but if you are, stay away from that ability. We've managed to break through on this side. We've got the steel balls locked on and the life leech kept them alive. So it turned out that we absolutely steamrolled them with this comp. So it definitely was a great escape. It looked incredibly dire, but it turned out really, really well. So if I was going to try and replicate this, I don't really know what the best start would be. Probably crawler with steel balls or Mustangs. So if I go crawler steel balls, because the fangs were basically, well, they weren't useless, but they didn't do much at all really. Oh, they did alright, actually. Yeah, they did alright, actually, so maybe starting off with fangs isn't such a bad idea. The good thing with starting off with fangs is the opponent usually goes for Stormcallers if you've got fangs. And obviously, as we saw there, the missile intercept is so powerful that if they go into Stormcallers, it actually benefits us. So maybe either fangs or crawlers is fine. So what would I do? I'd put the crawlers here, here, and maybe here. Or here. So let's have a look. He's one tile away from the front, so he'd be one tile further forward. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'd be able to fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 crawlers down the centre maybe as a Stormcaller distracting duty. So maybe just doing that, putting them all down the centre would work quite well rather than putting them behind the towers. So you mainly put them behind the towers to protect against splash damage from sledgehammers or from arc lights. But if they're using Mustangs, there's no point in putting them behind the towers. So in that case, if they haven't got a splash damage dealer, you're better off just going straight down the middle and using them as Stormcaller distracting duty. But obviously that's only if they take Stormcallers. So, and to make them take Stormcallers, you would need to have fangs or sledgehammers. So maybe to get them to actually commit to Stormcallers, maybe starting off with fangs and sledges is a good thing. Setting it up like this to get them to fall for the bait, and then switching over to the Steel Ball Mustang strategy afterwards. It'd also work with arc lights as well. So if I had 3 arc lights at the beginning instead of 3 fangs. So the only thing that doesn't really fit into this composition is the sniper. Because I could go 3 arc lights, or 3 fangs, or 3 crawlers. The crawlers would be, a bad thing to start with because they wouldn't go for Stormcallers if you've got crawlers. So if you start off with crawlers and they don't start off with Stormcallers, then you don't want to put them in the middle because then that'll definitely dissuade them from using Stormcallers. So you put them behind the towers, so you're not showing your hand. So yeah, I reckon that is the plan. So I'm gonna tinker around with this strategy, see if I can perfect it. But I hope it was entertaining for you, and join me again in the next one. We'll see what that one holds. Take care, guys. See you soon.